So, Francesca, good afternoon. How are you?
Thank you very well. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm very well indeed. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this mini interview. I think you, like me, are very excited about the development of the faculties within Transpire. And part of the reason for that is helping our members deal with the ever-growing issue of information overload. Perhaps if you could do just a brief intro to yourself and your current NED portfolio, and perhaps just make a quick allusion to some of the issues within that within your day job on the boards of a huge variety of companies.
Okay, so my name is Francesca Ecsery, and I am a portfolio NED and sit on 4 boards currently. So in terms of size, going from the large to the small, I sit on the board of Air France, which is the national carrier of France. I sit on the board of FNC Investment Trust, which is a FTSE 250 company, but it's the oldest listed company on the London Stock Exchange, and of course the oldest investment trust in the UK. I sit on the board of Marshall Motors, which is a car dealership network, AIM listed, and I sit on the board of the AIC, which is the Association of Investment Companies, which is a basically membership lobbying association. But I also sat on the boards of Good Energy Group, which is a renewable energy utility, WACL, which is a women's network in marketing, Vista Communication, which is a communications agency, and the Share Center until very recently, last July, which is an execution-only stockbroker. And on all of these, I am the consumer and digital NED on all these boards. And so what they have in common is that they're consumer facing, and what they have in common is that I'm pretty much the only one which doesn't have an industry background on their board. So I'm definitely the diversity card in that respect. I also work as a mentor, and my clients are predominantly senior leaders facing a career junction, women who want to be non-executive directors, but also startups in the consumer tech arena. Before I embarked on my NED career, some 9 years ago, I was, in the 80s, I worked as a strategy consultant at McKinsey. In the 90s, I worked as a marketeer and then sort of progressed to commercial director for brands like Walker's Crisps, Thomas Cook, Radio Rental, Going Places. And then in the noughties, I was Group MD for a number of startups and smaller companies in the digital travel arena. And then since 2011, I'm a portfolio NED. So basically, that's kind of what I do. And I have most of my day is about, especially these days, is a lot about working with my boards on the various crises that all these businesses are facing with COVID, but also with my clients who I mentor, because of course there's quite a lot of change in everybody's life and people are trying to cope with that. So yeah, interesting challenges.
Yeah. So tell me, how do you stay on top of your game in the 2 areas you get hired onto boards for, i.e. digital and consumer?
Right. So to keep my digital and consumer skills sharp, I do a number of things. So it's not just one, it's all of them. So every time I join a company as a non-executive director, I sort of contact HR and offer my services to mentor somebody in the marketing or digital or commercial arena, preferably, the director or the marketing head or a senior female marketeer in the organization, basically anybody C-suite or below who actually sort of give me the opportunity to get another view of the company. So that's part of my induction as well, and to make sure that I understand what's happening under the bonnet, so to speak. But also sort of this way I know what's happening in marketing, which is supposed to be the area that I am an expert in, at least in the company that I work for. So that's one of the things. I also sort of agree to mentor a number of startups in the consumer tech arena. So I limit them into that arena. And it has the impact of becoming like reverse mentoring. So I get to see firsthand and dive into the bleeding edge technology of these startups. And in exchange, I give them advice based on my experience in commercializing, fundraising, or monetizing pretty much anything consumer facing, if you will, which is actually my executive experience. I also sort of mentor young women in the marketing industry, so I work with Wackle on that. And of course, these are young women 3 to 6 years out of university, and pretty much everything they do is digital or data analytics based. So it allows me to sort of learn by osmosis that way. And I've recently signed up to work with Albright Collective, which is again another women's network that basically the membership is women, female founders, so female founders of startups. And of course, all of them are pretty much in the digital space as well. So again, so it's the mentoring helps them, of course, but me as well, to make sure that I keep sharp. I also am the webmaster on a number of websites for sort of non-for-profit interests of mine. I publish on blog posts, and so there's a lot of digital and admin and webmastering going on in my life, and that sort of sounds. I mean, I'm interested in that thing, but also it keeps my, on top of, not to say I'm a coder, but I know, sort of, I know how to publish websites, so I know enough coding, and sort of, getting to grips with the new technology gives me the feeling that I am on top of, or at least I know a lot more than most people about coding, certainly on the board that I sit on.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I participate or lead discussions about marketing topics, consumer topics, digital topics, and I do that on LinkedIn groups or speaking at conferences or organizing workshops. So basically, I'll say yes to those things as well. So that's kind of how I work on the digital and on the marketing and on the consumer champion skills, if you will.
Okay. And then there's, as a board member, you need to be sufficiently informed to be able to ask a appropriately challenging or stroke useful question. So how do you sort of keep up to date with what you need to keep up to date with in those other areas, be that ESG or diversity or cybersecurity or any of those other, or finance, any of those other sort of must-have areas that any board member needs to be again sort of up to date with?
Yeah, so that's quite a lot there too, because clearly, marketing and digital and consumer is lovely, but that's not what the conversations are about on the boardroom. Very little, actually, despite my best efforts. So the conversation is mainly about the other stuff. And so, yes, absolutely. So in a portfolio career, and it is entirely your responsibility to manage your own development and your own training. When you used to work for a company, certainly when I used to work for a company, there was always a training budget, and they would come up with ideas on how to train us and develop us, etc. So the company could take care of it, but as a free agent, so an independent non-executive director, it's completely up to you to do that. So you need to spend the time and you need to do the effort to make sure that you are on top of things. And so some industries, such as financial services industry, so I sat on the board of the Share Center and I sit on the board now of FNC Investment Trust. Well, that industry demands that the directors complete and report on a minimum of, I don't remember now, but 40 or 50 hours a year
CPD,
of CDP, which is Continual Development Program. which provides a very useful reminder that you have to manage your own development, and you have to do that to do your job properly. So I actually feel that it's often a shame that it's not required for NEDs in all industries to do that, because with the pace of change and the pace and the regulation that's coming from all over the place, your responsibilities are changing, are mainly increasing. They're not changing, they're increasing. There's more stuff on
The
it.
thing about regulation is it only goes in one direction.
Yes, exactly. It's just more costly. And in the good old days, as they say, it was apparently, also I've been told, enough for you to read the board packs and to rock up at board meetings. And even then, you could skive off the reading bit if you felt that no one would notice. So you could get away with that stuff, right? These days,
just enjoy the lunch.
Well, exactly. These days, NED roles are increasingly demanding in terms of technical knowledge, and that, never mind how competitive it is to get it in the first place. So you've got to make sure, and you've got to make sure you're on top of what you need to know. So I personally do spend a lot of time reading the trade press for making sure that I've got the industry knowledge, especially because I work in financial services, I work in auto retailing, I work in airline industry, I learn in financial services, sort of lobbying industry. And so all of these, I need to make sure that I know what's happening. I don't need to be an expert, but at least certainly I want to know that I know what's happening. So I set up Google Alerts. I used to work for McKinsey, so I'm part of the McKinsey Alumni Network, but I think now it's open to anybody. You can sort of sign up, and then you get access and have all the alerts about particular topics. So they're very good at writing up about the airline industry, so I certainly read those. Harvard Business Review as well has quite a lot of interesting things. I sign up to the FT on a daily basis, so I've got lots of alerts. And I do that for the companies that I work for, but also their competitors, the industry they operate in. So at least, I get at least the titles of what's going on a daily basis frequently enough to mean that, I do spend a lot of time reading. And actually, for like Air France, it's massive because it's an airline. It's massive. It's French. The press has got an unfettered appetite to cover the ins and outs and all the episodes and all the conspiracy theorying around the airline. So just on Air France, I could spend all day reading about it every day. So I had to come up with a coping mechanism, and then through research and through a lot of interviewing and speaking to colleagues, I sort of found out that actually the Credit Suisse industry analyst is amazing, and he writes on a daily basis a digest of all the top stories. So that means that I first read that, and then within that, if there's something that I feel that I need to read more, then I go into the main press or the industry press or La Tribune or the various publications to read more about it. But at least it gives me the feeling that that I know what's going on. And then I also signed up to the union, because Air France is heavily unionized, and the unions, they actually sort of provide a commentary on the news about the airline. And I signed up for that as well, so that I receive that point of view as well on what they think is going on as well. So it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of attending workshops, it's a lot of technical briefings, but hopefully, if you've chosen your directorships right, they are in the direction of interest. So it's not like, pushing water uphill.
No.
But sort of in addition to all this technical stuff and industry stuff, there's a number of areas and key trends emerging, which is, in my view, likely to increasingly dominate the conversations on board. And if they haven't already, they will soon. And you've mentioned a few of those. So so throughout the years, you will see me attending events and learning around the following topics. So obviously, the first one is ESG, and I'll go into more details in that. The second one is all about technology, automation, electrification, because two of my boards is around transportation. Electrification is a massive topic. but also big data and artificial intelligence, which actually is just a new sexy word for algorithm. That's what it was in the 40s, but now they call it artificial intelligence. But all that stuff is important. So I'll attend a couple of events a year or a couple of workshops a year about that. Cybersecurity is another one, mainly because being digital, people always look at me like, oh, but you're technology as well, and therefore you're cyber risk. It's like, well, actually, it's a broad topic, but I'm interested in cybersecurity because in there's an element of fraud, and fraud, quite apart from the massive fines you get if there's a cyber security problem in your company. Fraud actually causes a huge amount of damage to consumer confidence and a lot of hardship as well. So it is something that I'm particularly mindful of. So that's why I attend those. And then I also attend, the fourth area that I attend quite a lot of briefings on is remuneration and remuneration committee. And the reason for it is because, I've been doing this now for 9 years and I have ambitions of becoming chair or chairman at one point. And being a non-accountant and also being female, it's pretty unlikely that I will become chairman without chairing a committee first. And, being an ex-marketeer, remuneration, and that because it's about people, is the most logical one. So you will see me at REM briefing, and Deloitte briefings are excellent, and the PwC workshops around those topics are very good as well. So, so basically ESG or technology, AI, automation, cyber, and remuneration. Those are the four areas that I have narrowed it down, if you were. And then within ESG, of course, that's a huge thing. So the E, you've got environmental and climate, and this is where I became member of Chapter Zero, and I've been working with them to develop their toolbox. And the toolbox is basically, and by the way, membership is free and anybody could sign up. So I urge everybody watching this to sign up to Chapter Zero. But basically, you've got in there a toolbox for non-executive directors to to educate themselves, but also to learn how to ask questions at the board, to make sure that you have those conversations, those immensely important conversations, so that your business and your supply pipeline is addressing the risk that environmental and climate change problems are representing to the sustainability of your company. So that's one area which I find very exciting. Also, I find COVID was amazing as a catalyst to make sure that everybody's awareness about the board's responsibility towards our wider stakeholders, which is staff, community, etc. It was an amazing catalyst, and I just hope that it's not going to be lost. And I was able to see it firsthand. So one of the companies that I work for, they have been pretty amazing at making sure that the staff is very well briefed, and there's constant communication, and then sort of, this is Marshall's, and they kept open a few of the repair shops so that they could repair the police cars and the ambulances and key worker cars, and all of that created a huge amount of goodwill with staff, with customers. And when a lockdown opened up, there was a massive wave where everybody wanted to buy cars, and we were one of the companies that benefited most from that wave, and because people didn't forget
the goodwill, you were front of mind,
I mean, obviously operational excellence and board leadership, all that stuff, right? But this is where you can see a straight line into, you do well here, you get good financial outcomes there. It was undisputable.
Wow.
And then the last one is the G, which is governance, which is about diversity, certainly in my view, and diversity of thinking on boards and inclusion throughout the organization. And that is a particular hobby of mine and particular interest of mine, because I've always been passionate about all matters relating to women in the workforce. But this is now becoming more and more important, seeing that there is an increasing amount of authoritative research. And it's been like 10 years now that this research is published and updated every year. And then you've got empirical evidence, like with companies like Unilever, that proves without a shadow of a doubt that better diversity at the top of the organization and then throughout the echelons drive better discussions and better financial outcomes. So in my view, at a time where every business is looking for good financial outcomes, this is a complete no-brainer.
Yeah, get with the program. Yeah. Brilliant. How and you enjoy it all, and there you are, looking sort of fresh and relaxed. And I'm thinking, listening to you, how on earth do you do it all? But I suppose part of the key is because you're interested, yeah?
Yes, exactly. So it is interesting. It is fascinating. I mean, there are things I resent, which is getting up early and having to drive up half the country or travel or, that kind of stuff. That's more resentful than actually being able to delve into the technicalities of these things. I mean, I've always been passionate about commerce and sort of metrics and that kind of stuff, and board is about that. Board work is about that. So it kind of follows logically what I've been doing all along. And so it's really interesting, and I'm enjoying it.
Great. Well, I wish you every success in your bid to further your board career in the role of chair. I'm sure it'll happen sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
But thank you very much indeed for that amazing insight into how you cope. I mean, having that portfolio in such a range of industries, but you're possibly thriving on the interests that they all provide. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for asking me to speak, and good luck with the faculty's endeavor. I think it's an excellent endeavor, and hopefully you should help with the information overload that non-executives may be facing these days.
Yeah. I'm hoping it will do. Thanks for that endorsement.